the storied Tulane University campus and storied Devlin Fieldhouse, aka the Tulane Gym, Fogelman Arena. It's been around since the 1930s. It's still here, better than ever, and that's where we are for this evening's version of sportsNOLAtv. And a pleasant good evening to you, Ken Trahan. Happy New Year to you one and all, and welcome to another edition of sportsNOLAtv, where we break it down, football, basketball, and more. Later in the show, we'll visit with Tulane head basketball coach Ed Conroy in his building, and we look forward to doing just that. Of course, we'll do so with our regulars, including Brian Allee-Walsh of sportsNOLA.com. Brian, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Kenny. Always a pleasure to be here, my friend.
And, of course, former New Orleans Saints wide receiver, par excellence, Torrance Small. Torrance?
I like the way you put that. How are you doing, Ken?
I'm doing fine.
Happy New Year's to you.
And we are blessed to have a great friend and an accomplished individual on many fronts, none more accomplished than him in Louisiana coaching circles in any sport. This was December the 8th in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. It's nice to have Sherman Beatty. It's nice to have Duke Riley. It's nice to have, well, there's Duke. I knew he was coming, so yeah, he's happy. So are they. 25th of these that they hoisted as state champions of Louisiana. JT Curtis, great to have you with us.
Kenny, it's good to be here, and that was a great spot to see, watch those kids celebrate. It's an exciting time in their life and an exciting time in our life.
25 is like a silver jubilee number, but I guess as importantly and as significant is the fact that you won a national championship according to 6 different polls.
Well, you know, the interesting thing was I told the kids when it first started to look like we had an opportunity that one thing about sports is it's 1 week at a time. So we had to take care of business each week, and at the end of it, we wanted to win our state championship. And from that point on, we're going to let the pollsters take care of what they thought was best. And it turned out that a lot of them went ahead and selected us as the #1 team in the nation. We've got some really neat celebrations coming up and some recognition for the kids in the school. And it's a real honor. But I think as important, it's important to the state of Louisiana to really, for the first time, I think, since Katrina, reestablish ourselves as a national power in high school football. Our football here is as good as anybody in the country.
Just a balanced football team and a tremendous season for the John Curtis Patriots, culminating with the 2A state championship in the Superdome. We'll take a timeout. When we resume in just a moment, we'll talk about your New Orleans Saints as sportsNOLAtv continues from Devlin Fieldhouse on the campus of Tulane University. The equality in the NFL wins again, the socialist society that it is, and that's not a criticism, it's simply the way it is, where they help the lower teams to get better on an annual basis through the draft selection process, and it works again this year with the Redskins going from worst to first. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, glad you've joined us from Devlin Fieldhouse on the campus of Tulane University. The NFL playoffs underway. We'll get into those extensively and talk about the results of this past weekend. One team that's not part of it, your New Orleans Saints. Finished the season 7-9. Let's take a look at some headlines where the New Orleans Saints are concerned from what's happened and what will happen. No timetable yet on Sean Payton's return. And then, of course, Aaron Cromer and Carmichael both getting interviews. Their contracts expiring. Carmichael for the Bears vacancy. Cromer's interviewed previously for a job, but not this time around. And Doug Marrone, an original Saints assistant under Coach Sean Payton, being hired as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Okay, Brian, you and I have talked about this extensively. Sean Payton is not likely to come back before the Super Bowl, as was originally ruled by Roger Goodell.
Yeah, and I thought there might be an opening there for him to be reinstated. But Kenny, as you have said, we've talked about this ad nauseum, and it doesn't look like Goodell's going to reinstate Sean before the Super Bowl. And I was hoping that he would get an opportunity to at least reinstate him, maybe during that bye week, that open week between the championship games and the Super Bowl. But I just don't see it happening. Too much water is under the bridge, I think, for it to happen.
And Torrance, at this point, it's really an inane situation from my perspective. You've already punished them severely. Their season's over. You did the damage that you could have possibly done. You kept them from winning, from being in the playoffs. Why wouldn't you let them come back now?
Well, this is what they call overkill. This is the overkill thing. From the first, it shouldn't have happened. From a player's point of view, Shouldn't have been any suspensions. Maybe for the coaches, do I think it's a little over the hill? Yes, I think it's over the top. Right now, the season's over with. I think he should be able to come back. The Saints should be able to proceed with trying to rebuild this team. They lost a whole lot this year, a whole lot, and I think they can regain it back if Goodell let this process start right now.
JT, we don't know everything that did transpire, but obviously this was the harshest penalty ever handed down to an NFL coach. Are you surprised that it was maintained at the level that it was by the league?
You know, yes and no to that answer. Here's what I thought happened. I thought when they brought Tagliabue back in the picture and let him have some say in what was going on, I thought in order for the commissioner to maintain his level of authority, that I saw no way they were going to let Sean Payton come back early. I agree. I think if they kept Tagliabue out and maybe kept him out of the picture, that it might have had a chance for him to come in and say, as saying you've already served your punishment, we're going to allow you back in a little bit earlier so that you get your team back in order, might have had a chance. But I thought once Tagliabue reinstated those players and they were able to kind of usurp his authority a little bit, he had to show that he was still in charge of the NFL, and I think he's doing that through Sean Payton.
And I think the way that Goodell reacted after Tagliabue's ruling spoke volumes. He did not have to say anything. And to me, that was the poignant response here, is the fact that he responded at all. He didn't have to. He appointed Tagliabue to make a ruling. Once he ruled, why not keep your mouth shut? He couldn't keep his mouth shut because he truly felt some tremendous antagonism toward the Saints.
There's no doubt about that. And again, I think he wanted to establish his authority as Roger Goodell being in charge of the National Football League, and he's going to make his point through Sean Payton.
I agree with Coach totally on this. I thought there was an opportunity, even a chance, that he could maybe reduce the number 2 pick that they lost for this year's draft, and also the $500,000 fine that the club got assessed. I really thought that there was an opportunity there because Sean Payton has played by the rules as far as I know, and I thought there might be an opportunity for Goodell to show a good approach thing here and maybe reduce, even lower that draft pick. I think they're going to take that draft pick now, and I think they're going to keep that $500,000 fine.
I agree with you. Now, that will help out. That will help out because they did lose a lot with the loss of Sean Payton. And I think it's overkill. And the one thing he doesn't want to do is diminish his authority. That's the one thing he does not want to do, and I think that's why he's not coming back.
Okay, free agency where the Saints are concerned. Clearly they have some guys that are free agents as we speak, and clearly this roster is going to change. Let's take a look at the potential free agents. You got Bushrod, he's Exhibit A, and the top priority in my mind, Casillas, Chase Daniels, Cedric Ellis, Devery Henderson, Ramon Humber, Albert Mack, Turk McBride, Courtney Roby, Scott Shanley, and then on the other side, the restricteds, including De La Puente, Drescher, Gillette, Ivory, and then the other part of the list includes Raphael Bush, Michael Higgins, and Eric Olson. Brian, give me the keepers here and give me the guys that aren't keepers in your mind.
I would agree with you totally. Bushrod is a left tackle. He plays one of the most coveted, if not the second most coveted position on offense for sure. So you've got to re-sign him. I don't think, though, Kenny, that they're going to get him done without a little bit of a struggle. I think he may have to go out and test his value out in the open market before they get him signed.
And you're right, and I think he is. You know, in these days with the pay that guys are getting right now, especially offensive linemen at a premium, we lost a great offensive lineman last year in Knicks. We can't afford to lose another one in Bushrod. I think that's a deal that has to be done. The rest of those guys, Castillo, maybe you can work something out with this guy here. I think he's a good backup. I don't think he's a starter right now. High energy guy. Some of those other guys, you know, whether we keep them or not, I don't think it's pressing. But Bushrod, I think that's something we press.
They're going to have to make some moves, JT, because of the salary cap issue. They're well over the cap, so they're going to have to cut some people loose. And those guys are going to be veterans.
Well, it's going to be difficult because, you know, you talk about a guy like Chris Ivory. I think he's probably the unheralded hero with the Saints. I think the guy can run the football. I think he can catch the football. I think he's a valuable asset. And he might allow you to get rid of a higher-priced guy and maybe not diminish your offense to any degree at all. What's important, though, is they're going to keep Bushrod because that guy wearing number 9 wants that backside protected.
No question, that's the most important element. Ask Drew Brees, he'll tell you that you have to have Bushrod back. And with regard to the others on the list, Brian De La Puente, he's a keeper because you can get him rather inexpensively, and he's done a good job as the starting center of this football team. Beyond that, I do think it's going to come down to a decision at running back between Chris Ivory and Pierre Thomas. I certainly know that Mark Ingram is going to be here, and you know that Darren Sproles is going to be here. So it really does come down to those two in terms of making that decision on a long-term basis. And if you go on past history, Thomas gets the call, but as JT mentioned, finances play a role there, and you know he makes a little bit more money than Chris Ivory does. When we return in just a moment, we'll take a trip around the NFL, take a look at the playoffs, the matchups, and what's to come as Sports NOLA TV continues from Tulane University. Watched Joe Webb, and you really kind of felt sorry for him given the circumstances he found himself in. Not expecting to start, not really prepared to start, hadn't played all season long, and all of a sudden he's thrust into a situation at Lambeau Field in severely cold weather against a really good team in the opening round of the playoffs. That's tough, and obviously it did not work out very well for him or for his team. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV from Devlin Fieldhouse on the campus of Tulane University. We'll visit with Ed Conroy on the Green Wave coming up in just a little bit. The NFL playoff picture becomes a little bit clearer after week one. Let's take a look at the NFC results from Wild Card Weekend. And it was a pretty interesting weekend. As we mentioned, the Vikings really had no chance without Christian Ponder. Got beat 24-10 by Green Bay. The game was never in doubt. Washington jumped out to a 14-0 lead. Then they could not beat the team from Washington State as the Seahawks whipped them 24-14. In the AFC, it was the Houston Texans rebounding, righting themselves, winning at home 19-13. They were the clearly better side here, but a pick six kept Cincinnati in the game. And then Baltimore, just too much defense for the young Colts at home as they beat Indianapolis 24-9, much to the delight of Baltimore fans who can't stand watching that team wearing those uniforms that they're so familiar with. Very, very tough. All right, so we look at what happened this past weekend. First of all, in the NFC, Brian, I was 3 out of 4. I didn't know Griffin was in as bad a shape as he was. I picked the Redskins, had the other 3 right. Certainly Green Bay was no surprise. Even with Ponder, you had to believe that Green Bay was going to win that game.
Yeah, I thought one of the road teams had a chance to win, and I thought two. I really thought Cincy could go in to beat Houston, and I thought Baltimore would have a chance against Baltimore. Baltimore looked like the old Ravens team. They surprised me. They picked up their game in that playoff game. But Seattle went in and took care of business, and that's a team that you got to watch. That's going to be a heck of a game at Atlanta.
Yeah. Not Baltimore to Baltimore. Indianapolis to Baltimore. I know
Baltimore and Baltimore.
You're there. Hey, the games this week, I have to be honest, I wasn't that impressed. I thought we'd have a little bit more competition in playoff games, especially when you talk about wild card. These are teams trying to fight to keep going. You know, they was fighting to get into the playoffs, and then you get in and you give this type of performance. RG3, we know he was a little injured, couldn't give the performance that he like to have. But Green Bay, that's another injury. I guess we could say probably the injuries kind of made the playoffs a little sour this first round, but hopefully we'll get something better coming up.
Kind of dampen things a little bit, JT. If you look for impressive performances, you have to look at Seattle and you have to look at Baltimore. Those two in particular, I thought, looked pretty good.
Well, they're good football teams. There's no question about that. You know, the bottom line of the first round of the playoffs is this is a quarterback league. And when you go into a game and your quarterback has not taken a snap in 16 games, I find that to be just a little ridiculous. I think hard to believe, number one. Of course, the situation at Washington, that's a coach's call. It's a difficult situation. To be honest with you, I'd have pulled him after he made his first down run and limped off the sideline. It was obvious to me at that point he was not going to be able to execute the game plan for Washington. But Seattle can rush the passer. And when you can put pressure on the passer the way they've been able to do it, you've got to keep them as the dark horse in this race.
You know, when you look at Minnesota, and that's a great example, JT, is that Christian Ponder is one thing, and when they relied so heavily on AD all day, as they did throughout the regular season. It's one thing to overcome Christian Ponder. It's another thing to overcome Joe Webb. And when you've got Joe Webb back there, you've got a defense that can just fly out and stop AP or AD. And that's what they did. They made him, they definitely neutralized him.
Yes, they came with an 8-man front. They forced Joe Webb to throw the ball. He tried to do way too much. Again, here's a guy not only didn't play a game, Coach, he didn't attempt to pass.
That's pretty tough.
That's very tough. You know, you might expect things like that playing behind a Peyton Manning or a Drew Brees. But then again, you might not, because these guys are going to win some games and get you a lead where these backups can't come in.
Well, let's take a look at the matchups now as we head into the second weekend, as things get a lot tougher and more interesting. First of all, in the NFC, it's going to be Seattle and Atlanta on Sunday. What an intriguing matchup that is. A team that everybody fashionably likes now in Seattle. The other is the top seed in Atlanta. Green Bay and San Francisco, rematch of a regular season game played early in the year that the 49ers won at Lambeau Field. Okay, Brian, who do you like in these two?
I like Seattle. I'm going to stay with Seattle, and I like Denver in the AFC. We'll get to that.
Well, no, Denver's not here. We're talking Green Bay.
Right, and I like Green Bay. So I'm going to take both road teams.
Okay.
I'm going to take both road
George?
teams.
I like Seattle. I like Seattle. I think their defense is going to stall Atlanta, and I'm going to take the 49ers because I don't think Green Bay defense is strong enough to stop San Fran, but I think San Fran can at least get a couple stops against Green Bay.
JT?
Well, you know, I'm going to kind of go the opposite. I like Atlanta. I think Atlanta's rested. I think they've got a good football team. Their quarterback is playing really well. They're playing good enough on defense. And the bottom line to it is I think San Francisco might be the best coached football team in the NFL.
All right, and I am going to go with the Atlanta Falcons at home. I think they're a rested team. They've got something to prove, and they've been really good at home this year, in particular on defense, where they forced a bunch of turnovers. And then on the other side, rematch game, I like the team that lost the first time in Green Bay to win at San Francisco. Here's the AFC picture. Baltimore at Denver on Saturday, Houston at New England on Sunday. Brian, you say?
Denver, New England. I think that's a gimme both ways.
Torrance?
Denver, New England. That's the one we want to see. That's the money game. That's what the NFL wants as well. Paul Davis.
JT?
It's hard to pick against those two, so I'll join the group.
Well, you're the one that said it's a quarterback league. Does it get any better than Peyton Manning and Tom Brady?
Well, that's the point. And so well coached. I mean, you're talking about two football teams that are fundamentally sound on both sides of the football.
And in your case, you have a special rooting interest because you coached against Peyton Manning.
No question, and his family and the whole group. I mean, you pull for guys like that to be successful.
Yeah, and Houston took care of business. Congrats, but they'll get knocked out in the second round for a second straight year. And as far as Denver is concerned, listen, they have been the best team in the league over the past couple of months, but there's some pressure associated with that as well, and we'll see if they're able to stand up under that pressure. The key is they're at home, and if they should win this game, they'd get New England at home. That's a big difference than going to New England at this time of the year. Being at home makes all the difference in the world, in my opinion, and I certainly think that that is what's going to enable the Denver Broncos to get it done in this situation because they are very, very good. We'll take a time out here. When we return in just a moment, we'll turn our attention to college football and the good and the bad as we continue at Sports NOLA TV from Devlin Fieldhouse at Tulane. Our Sports NOLA trivia question of the evening. The Alabama Crimson Tide and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish meet for the BCS National Championship tonight. How many FBS schools have nicknames that do not end in S? Are you kidding me? Is it 6, 8, 10, or 12? Close your eyes, pick a name out of a pocket, I don't know, and you'll come up with an answer that makes sense. That's funny. Only Lenny can come up with that. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV from Devlin Fieldhouse at Tulane University. Ed Conroy of the Greenway will join us shortly. Right now, we take a look at the College Bowl season, and we look back fatefully at Atlanta and the Chick-Fil-A Bowl, where Clemson kicked a field goal on the final play of the game to beat LSU. And Brian, this was such a weird game in so many facets. Started off like LSU was going to blow them out with a fumble recovery, scoring the first play from scrimmage, and little did we know that was one of only two offensive highlights they'd have in the game.
2nd and 2. I want to hear JT's play decision on that one. You get a first down, you run out the clock, you win the game. That's all I can say about that game.
Now, as far as Clemson's concerned, Torrance, they're a pretty good football team. They have a lot of skill on the offensive side.
We talked about that earlier when before the game. We talked about the skill set that they had. We didn't know how they can hold up front, but we said skill set, they can go man for man against LSU.
Well, they really did a good job, JT. In truth, Clemson dominated the game other than the 2 plays LSU had on offense. This was a game they dominated, and yet LSU still should have won the game.
Well, they should have won it because they should have run the ball at least one of those 2 times.
Thank you.
I would have run it twice, and if I couldn't pick up 2 yards, I don't deserve to win the game.
No
but if they
question.
do that, the game's over. Clemson never has an opportunity to kick the field goal. You have to remember this. The enemy is never the opponent. It's only the clock. When the clock goes zeros, it doesn't make any difference how many good players they got, the game's over. And I'd have found a way to run that clock out and finish the game right there.
So much has been made over, the receivers were open on both plays. That doesn't mean anything. Nothing. You run the ball, Jeremy Hill, twice to make 2 yards in 2 plays. If you can't do that, you don't deserve to win. But guess what? You've made them burn 2 timeouts as well.
And the clock is gone. You've looked at probably anywhere between 75 and 80 seconds of the plays gone off the clock.
Yep, Clemson wins 25-24. LSU's now lost 3 of their last 4 bowl games after Miles started off winning all of his bowl games initially. Then we fast forward to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome on January 2nd and the All-State Sugar Bowl. Charlie Strong facing his former team in the Florida Gators. And this one started off the way it would end up, and that is with a big play, Brian, on defense by the Cardinals. I mean, first play from scrimmage, they're in the end zone.
Well, I tell you what, you looked at the way this game developed, and one team didn't want to be there, and one team wanted to be. And I take my hat off to Charlie and what they did. Louisville clearly outplayed Florida.
And I thought Charlie Strong had his team totally prepared. He really moved up in coaching circles. The guy waited a long time for his opportunity, Torrance, and he's taking full advantage of it.
Yes, after 13, 14 years over there with Florida Gators, one of their top recruiters, he didn't leave the state of Florida. He brought 30 guys from the state of Florida up there to play on this team, and 16 of them started. It's no surprise why they're winning.
This is a 1-2 game, JT. One team wanted to be there. The other team really acted like they didn't want to. And their fan base was kind of the same. One didn't show up, one did.
You bring 7,000 fans to a BCS Bowl, something's wrong with the enthusiasm in the whole program, or at least for that particular game. But the bottom line is the quarterback from Louisville could play. And as we said before, it's a quarterback game. That young man could throw it, he could run it, and he had skilled people that could catch the ball and do something with it after.
And Teddy Bridgewater is a special player, and he'll enter next season maybe only behind Johnny Manziel in terms of quarterbacks in this country based upon what he can do with his skill set, his ability to read, and the fact that he can make some plays with his feet. The Louisville defense came up big in this game. No one expected it. The obligatory Gatorade bath, 33-23. It really wasn't that close as Louisville defeats Florida. And congratulations to the Cardinals, which of course leads us to the conclusion of the college football season, the national championship game, which will pit 2 storied programs, the Alabama Crimson Tide against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Alabama seeking its 3rd national championship in 4 years. Notre Dame, it's been a while, but they're back, and these 2 storied programs have met 6 times. Notre Dame's won 5 of those, one here in New Orleans in a storied Sugar Bowl in 1973, Brian. And no one will ever forget Tom Clements to Robin Weber to clinch that victory. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was at the game.
I was too. I came down from Indiana for the game. It was New Year's Eve, if you remember. And yeah, I'll tell you what, what's that, 30-some years later or something like that? In my opinion, Alabama should be 1 and Notre Dame should be 2. And I think that there'd be a much more better way of looking at this game, because I think everything is on Alabama. They've got to win this game because everybody's picking them. They're 9.5-point favorite.
And you're picking them.
And I'm picking them. I'm picking them.
Yes, I'm picking Alabama as well. One reason, I think they're going to win. Two big SEC powerhouse teams went down. Florida went down, and LSU went down. Alabama doesn't want to be the 3rd one. I think they're going to come ready to play.
And the SEC, by the way, is still 5-3. This is why Alabama is so good, JT. They have 2 terrific running backs who complement each other very well. A quarterback's got 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and makes plays and is smart. And the best offensive line in the United States. This is something you truly appreciate.
Well, there's no doubt. I think that's a key. You know, everybody's talked about the great Notre Dame defense, how well they've played. And the bottom line to it is the Alabama offensive line can play with anybody. They've got great running backs. They've got an offensive line that can dominate. And remember, Nick Saban's been there and done that. He'll have this team well prepared. He'll have them under control. Their emotions will be under control. And I think that I would pick Alabama to win this ball game and be very, very surprised if they did not.
Golston is much improved at Notre Dame at quarterback, but he's still a freshman. Brian, he came on late in the season and made plays. He can move, and that's important to extend plays. He's going to have to do that, in my opinion, against this Alabama team. Notre Dame has the ability. This was their best game of the year against Oklahoma.
That's the game I was going to point to, Kenny. You know, he kind of struggled, was pulled and reinserted and pulled and reinserted throughout the season, but that game he showed what he can do, and I think he grew up, and that offense grew up that night as well.
Well, the one thing I know, Torrance, is Notre Dame is the real deal on defense. They play good physical defense. We all know about Manti Te'o, but they can stand their ground at the line of scrimmage with anybody. They're going to have to against Alabama.
The one thing they're going to have to do against Alabama is stop the run. And one thing that gives you opportunity to win ball games is a defense. And by them having a great defense all season, the defense held up, offense just had to make plays.
JT, one thing about both teams is if there's any perceivable weakness on either team, it's the same for both. Secondaries, a little bit suspect. You can make plays against their secondaries. We saw that with LSU against Alabama.
Well, no question about that. And this is what I think, too. You got to remember that Alabama broke in a new offensive coordinator. And the more these guys work together, the more that he's able to feel out that quarterback, I think you're going to see a better play out of the Alabama quarterback than you saw during the season as they learn each other and they grow together.
And an offensive coordinator we know a little bit, and Doug Nussmeier, who played for the Saints, Brian.
And you know what? He's made such a difference. I mean, he's helped A.J. McCarron tremendously. I agree with JT on that. You know, their offense is just going to be too strong, I think, for Notre Dame's defense.
And it's going to be interesting, I think. It's going to be interesting to see how people handle the pressure. Alabama has all the expectations on them to win, and you got to see how they handle that. But they have been there and done that. And, of course, Notre Dame, storied program, and everyone expects them to be able to come in and compete but lose. And they've got a chip on their shoulders. They think otherwise, and they're going to try to prove that very clearly. It makes for a great setting. Two storied programs, if not the two most storied programs in the country, hooking up to play for a national championship. We look forward to it shortly. When we return in just a moment, our hot seat segment, when should a coach pull a player when injured? Interesting. I think you know what we're getting at when Sports NOLA TV continues from Devlin Fieldhouse at Tulane University. Our Sports NOLA trivia question of the evening surrounds nicknames, and the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish meet for the national championship tonight. How many FBS schools have nicknames that do not end in S? Well, Tulane is one of those. And how many? The answer is 12. And there are the names. Tulsa, of course, in Tulane's league. Syracuse, you know that's a singular. North Carolina State, not to be confused with Loyola, and many more. So a pretty good illustration, good question to ponder, and one you can use on other people now that you know the answer. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV, Devlin Fieldhouse, home of the Tulane Green Wave basketball team. We'll visit with Ed Conroy in the next segment. Our hot seat segment today involves when a coach must exact his authority in determining whether an injured player should continue to play or sit down. Robert Griffin III is Exhibit A. Brian Allee-Walsh, you are on the hot seat.
Kenny, thanks as always. This is an easy one in my opinion, and I love the dais that we have here, the panel. We've got a player, a coach, and two media people. So we're going to get some valued opinions here. My opinion is this. I would have started RG3. He obviously had the backing of Dr. James Andrews, the noted orthopedic surgeon that works for the Redskins on a consultant basis. He was cleared to play the game. But when he stumbled and fell late in the first quarter on the second drive, that said something right there. He could barely make it back into the huddle. At the very least, I would have pulled him at halftime because he was immobile. He was not giving the team the best opportunity to win, in my opinion, all right? And they've got a valued a proven young rookie, proven in the sense that he led the Redskins to a victory in a meaningful game in the season in Kirk Cousins. I would have pulled RG3 and played Cousins probably from the second half forward.
And I understand that, and that's good point. From a player's point, from our point, coming up, as a little kid, as I was coming up, coaches always taught me to fight through it. Keep going. You're okay. It's just a bump. It's just a bruise. You can make it. We need you. And we always was taught those things to persevere and to overcome. And the same thing when we get into pros, we're learning to compete. A person that gives up, that's a person that they say quit on the team. And I can see it from RG3 point of view, looking at this saying, I quit on the team. We're not going to do that. If we're going to get pulled, the coach has to pull us. We're not going to go up and say, hey, coach, I can't do it. I think you need to go get the next guy. I can't do it.
JT, you've had to make these kind of decisions. You say?
Yeah, that's tough, number one. But I agree. I would have pulled him, and I would have pulled him for two reasons. First of all, I think Kirk Cousins was more than capable of stepping in. Don't forget, at Michigan State, he played in some very competitive ball games that came down to the wire. He had been in a big arena in the big house and had played. He played well when he had his opportunity during the season. But as important, the Redskin offense was different. They couldn't run the read option with him. They didn't have the threat of the run anymore. So they took away what RG3 brings to the table. And I think he's going to be a great football player in that league. The final thing was, it was obvious his throwing motion was not what it was supposed to be. And that's because what people don't understand is you don't throw with your arm, you throw with your feet. When your feet aren't planted and are not in the right position, you're not going to make good throws. Just go back to the 2009 Super Bowl and watch a guy make a throw off balance that the Saints picked that allowed us to go to the Super Bowl. Wasn't that the receiver wasn't open, it's that his feet wasn't in the right position. He could not plant and throw the way he needed to throw. It was obvious to me he should have come out.
Well, clearly it impacted all aspects of his game as we render the judgment here. It's real simple. It's still a 14-13 Redskins lead going to the fourth quarter, not just the third quarter, but going to the fourth quarter. That game is there to be won. And to not give yourself the best chance to win the game, I think, was a disservice. I have enormous respect for Mike Shanahan. His record speaks for itself. Jim Haslett's defense did everything it could to stay in this game as long as they possibly could. But there was no way they could keep Seattle out of the end zone in the fourth quarter. They just basically wore out, and Seattle's a good football team. From the standpoint of throwing the ball, JT's right. He couldn't plant to do anything. He was high frequently. From the standpoint of running, he couldn't do that at all. And you've got to give your offense a chance to succeed. And in my opinion, in this particular game, their best chance and their best option clearly in the second half. And I stress the second half was Cousins, because there's no doubt that Robert Griffin was way, way, way below his standard. And that did not give the Redskins a real chance to win this football game. I think the coach always has the final say so. He's got to make an intelligent decision based on the information he has from team doctors, from his assistant coaches, but most of all based upon the eye test and what he's looking at. You have to look out for the well-being of the individual first and foremost before trying to win the game. And oh, by the way, they kind of come together because you had a better chance by making the change in that game. JT, you got a very important vote coming up here shortly in Baton Rouge about select and non-select schools and possibly splitting the LHSAA. We're all on record as saying we're adamantly opposed to it based upon what it would bring about. And of course, your school is at the forefront of this because your school, along with Evangel, are the reasons we are where we are right now. Give us your take on this situation.
Well, the situation's changed just a little bit because now they've included public schools to be in this select business. Magnet schools and charter schools have now joined parochial and private schools. I think and I hope cooler heads will prevail. This is a movement that comes out of central Louisiana where they do not have the same kind of makeup scholastically that we have in our schools in the southern part of the state. And I think that it would be a tremendous, tremendous mistake to divide us. We got such a good product. We have so many things that are going for us. I think this split would be devastating to the association as a whole, and I think it would hurt schools that did not anticipate it hurting them in the long run.
Let's teach people to work together rather than to segregate. I thought we got past that about 40 years ago.
That was my thinking, that we've moved past that. And as educators, we ought to be able to work together. It's that simple. And that's what we ought to be trying to teach our children.
Two basketball teams that won state championships a year ago, boys and girls. Both finished third in the recent All-State Sugar Bowl National Prep Classic. I know you're very happy with the job that Mike Kreitzer and Barbara Farris have done.
No question about that. Really excited about what they've done and looking forward to the season. And just a quick comment about your next guest. I'm an Ed Conroy fan. I just think he's done a great job here at Tulane. He's such a fundamentalist. We've gotten to be friends through the last couple of years and have a lot of admiration for him. And I think basketball in our whole state is beginning to look up and beginning to get the recognition it deserves.
Yeah, he's your friend. He'd like to see that football player try to play basketball. You never know. I mean, I'm not naming names here, Malachi Dupree, but you never know how that works. I can get away with that. JT, great to have you with us. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you all.
We enjoy watching you with that other guy on that other station, my great friend in Friday Night Football. I'll give you a plug because you deserve it. Keep up the good work. God bless you.
Thank you, brother. I enjoy it.
All right.
Thank you.
JT Curtis.
Thank you.
When we return in just a moment, Ed Conroy of Tulane joins us here from Devlin Fieldhouse at Tulane University. Trending now at sportsNOLA.com, LSU underclassmen galore heading to the NFL draft, an unprecedented number. The Riverside Rebels win the All-State Sugar Bowl National Prep Basketball Classic, shocking Sheldon of Sacramento, California. Also the latest on football recruiting and our first NBC video updates, and a lot of basketball as well, including the outstanding institution that we find ourselves at here today at Tulane University, Devlin Fieldhouse. Newly renamed, refurbished, nice looking. It's great to be back here. I was just reminiscing that my first game here that I saw was in 1966, which I guess means I'm getting old. It's a pleasure to welcome a guy that's not getting so old, but he's done a tremendous job. In his third year here at Tulane, he has his team in a good position right now at 12-3, heading into conference play in just a couple of nights, and he is Ed Conroy. Ed, it's great to have you with us.
Oh, great to be on, and great to be here in the Devlin Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, it looks good. It feels better. Does it really help at all from a recruiting perspective?
Oh, absolutely. And I think most of all, with the completion of the Hertz Center, our practice facility, and now Devlin Fieldhouse, I think it just spells commitment. And I think, recruits and anybody that we're talking to, they sense that energy in that positive direction.
And you can see the results. You're 10-0 at home this year, which obviously you want to protect home court. You've done that very well, and you've won 5 straight games.
Well, it takes players to protect home court, and I'm proud of our guys to this point. Just how hard they played and how coachable they've been, and we've been a little bit of a work in progress with some guys coming back from injury, but certainly I can't fault our effort every day, and I think we're continuing to get better.
Well, as we watch some of your highlights this year, you've got pretty good inside-outside combination, but you have to start with Josh Davis. He's been superb for you, averaging over 18 a game, over 10 boards a game, over 2 assists a game, which is underrated, I think, in his game, and he shoots 51% from the field, and he's a solid free throw shooter, just a good all-around player.
Well, he really is, and it starts with his work ethic. Josh is a guy that he's a relentless basketball player and really epitomizes how we like to play. We like versatile guys and like to put them in all positions all over the floor, kind of a positionless basketball, if you will. And Josh is a guy hard for other teams' big guys to handle because he dribbles the ball so well, passes so well, and then certainly once that ball goes up, he just unleashes on that offensive glass.
Ricky Tarrant emerged on the scene last year. He earned Freshman of the Year accolades in the conference, in Conference USA. Well-deserved. He's quick, he's good, and I know you're very happy to have him as well.
Absolutely. Another guy that really brings it every day to practice from an energy standpoint. And Ricky he just continues to get better. I think he's one of our more improved players, even though he had a great year last year. And I think in our last 2 or 3 games, our fans have seen that explosive scoring ability that he has come back to the surface a little bit.
Part of the big 3, Jordan Callahan is double-figure scorer. He's been really good for you. Kendall Timmons has started every game. Looking for that 5th guy to step up too, I would imagine.
We are, and you mentioned Callahan and Timmons, our 2 seniors, and they've been fantastic leaders. Jordan's probably going to leave as the all-time leading 3-point shooter in school history, and Timmons is a guy that he's another 1,000-point scorer. So they've been very valuable. But that 5th guy, I think we have a number of young guys between Lou Dabney, Kajon Mack. We have some big guys inside, and Bruja and Dry. We have several pieces that can step forward here in the second part of the season, and I think we will.
And Dabney's a freshman, and he's coming off of a knee injury, so it's been a little bit slow for him. We've seen him play in high school. We know he can play. It's simply a matter of time.
Lou's going to be a special player for us, and again, another guy that can play multiple positions. He's so strong and just so competitive that I think in conference play, he's going to be a guy that is going to get extended minutes.
Coach, you're 12-3. You had a great non-conference schedule. You open up the conference CUSA Wednesday against UTEP here. we talked beforehand, Ed, where did the media pick you preseason? And I think you're going to show them that they were wrong, as long as they picked you in the middle of the pack here.
Well, I think it's an interesting question because I think we were one of those teams that was hard for people to put a finger on just where they thought we would be. And, not that that's, relevant to, the team, but
Yeah.
it was interesting. I mean, we had so many injuries the last 2 years, and just where are those guys health-wise, whether it's Bruja or Cherry or Timmons, and where would they be in their progress and their development, and Dabney, another one, so I think it was hard for people to pinpoint where they thought we would be, but I like that anyway. I don't like to label a team before that year gets started. We talk about constantly getting better every day, and I think that's the best thing about this team is their coachability.
Coach, I hear that you say you have a young team. In-state, are you looking to bring a lot of in-state recruits here to help bring the crowds here to the Devlin?
Absolutely. I think there's some great basketball, here in Louisiana and great coaching, and we want to build it, and be strong at home first. Just like protecting home court, we want to protect our home turf and recruiting. And Trey Dry is a sophomore who has started just about every game for us up front. He's a Glen Oaks product, and then Lou Dabney, who we've mentioned from Riverside. That's one player in each of those two classes, but we'd like there to be a lot more of those coming.
Oh, Brian mentioned that Texas El Paso is coming in on Wednesday night. My good friend Tim Floyd will be back here again, who I worked with for many, many years. Obviously, his team's going to be well coached. Not as good as they were, say, 2 years ago. Maybe a little bit better than they were last year.
Well, I think they really put a tough schedule together. But I think they're starting to find their stride now. They have some talented guys and a lot of guys back from last year. And as you mentioned, Coach Floyd does a tremendous job. He'll have them ready to start conference play. I expect nothing but a real physical and a battle here on Wednesday night.
And you go to SMU on Saturday, so first road game. And you've played a lot of home games, so you're looking for that test on the road. You had Georgia Tech early in the season, been to San Diego. But again, to play on the road, it's important to have been there before and have proven something on the road previously.
It is, and I think our non-conference schedule set up well, not only from a different styles of play that we saw, but also we went on the road, as you mentioned, Georgia Tech, Alabama, San Diego. We also had some neutral site games like Hofstra. So I think our guys have gotten used to playing in different environments, and now we look forward to, after the UTEP game, we'll go on the road and face Larry Brown and his SMU Mustangs.
We know the future of the Big East, but it's Conference USA right now, and obviously there are some good teams here. We know the history of the Memphis program, the history of the Houston program, and what they've done, but you got, a very good program in Central Florida as well. Tulsa's a good basketball team. East Carolina is a good basketball team. This is a pretty good basketball league, whereas football kind of struggled this year.
I tell you what, from a basketball standpoint, not only is there good talent, but many of the coaches have just such great experience. You mentioned Coach Floyd, Coach Brown, and many others. They've been through a lot of different seasons, and so no matter what is thrown at their team from an injury standpoint or adjustments, they can usually reinvent themselves and be a tough out no matter what night it is you find them. So I think that's one of the things that makes our league special is the quality of the coaching.
Coach, 15 games into your schedule, what have you learned? What surprised you about your team so far?
Well, maybe not surprised me, but probably the thing I'm most pleased about is just their competitiveness. I think we've gone into the halftime many times this year, and the score might not be the way we wanted, or the game might not be going our way, but they just have a will to win, and they'll go out there and make those adjustments, and that's fun to watch when young people compete and competition brings out the best in them.
Hey, is this a tournament team? I mean, by that postseason tournament team, in your opinion?
Well, again, not wanting to put any kind of lid on our team. I think it's going to be an
I'll
exciting
do it for
team.
you.
I think it's going to be an exciting team because I think they're going to keep getting better all the way, and I think we'll be playing our best basketball come March, and that's what you need to do if you want to be in a tournament.
Absolutely.
Coach, I'm a self-proclaimed great coach out in Kenner, 9 to 10-year-old boys basketball. And I just want to know, can I get those little fellas to come and watch you practice one day?
Absolutely, and any other coaches that are out there that would like to, come on.
Let's take a look at some upcoming key games for Tulane. You have a chance to come out to Devlin Fieldhouse and see the Green Wave play. We mentioned UTEP, and then, of course, we talked about a lot of these conference teams. Tulsa coming in here, Memphis on the 22nd, always an interesting matchup. Central Florida, Marshall, and Southern Miss close to home. So a real opportunity to see the Green Wave play some really good basketball teams. And I've watched them play many of these teams for many years and saw those matchups back in the 80s with Hot Rod Williams and Keith Lee at Memphis. Those were special times. This was once a really good program. It can be again, can't it, Ed?
Oh, absolutely. We have so many things going for us here. And I feel like the direction is moving that way. And we need to build a program that is deserving of this great institution.
We'll return in just a moment with more from Devlin Fieldhouse with Coach Ed Conroy of the Green Wave as we continue with Sports NOLA TV here on WHNO Channel 20. Tulane Green Wave ticket information. Go to TulaneGreenWave.com. Call 861-WAVE. Get your tickets. They're very well priced, very entertaining opportunity. Not a bad seat at Devlin Fieldhouse, and you can watch a team that provides quite a bit of entertainment and is winning. So we encourage you to come out and see the Green Wave play. Watch Ed Conroy's team continue to perform well and push toward that postseason tournament, which Brian Allee-Walsh is basically guaranteed they're going to be in here today. Okay, Ed, so it's Conference USA this year. Pretty soon it will be the Big East. Rick Dixon's pretty much confirmed that that's going to be the case. We know all the turmoil and what's taken place. You cannot control that. All you can control is your method and your message to your players, and I know you're looking forward to the change.
Well, you know, one of the first things I said to our guys, because we have seniors, Kendall Timmons, Jordan Callahan in that locker room. Conference USA has been a great partner of ours for many years, and for right now, these next 2 years, that's what we would have to go through to achieve our postseason goals. And you know, and it's been proven. Memphis has done it, others. You win our league in basketball, you can compete and get to the Final Four, whatever level you want to get to. So that's where we're at right now. But the thing I do really appreciate and love about Tulane right now with our leadership, not just the facilities, conference affiliation, everything, we're really trying to move forward and be aggressive and position ourselves down the road as good as we can be.
Right, Brian, because the reality is that this is probably not the final place or the final resting place, if you will, for Tulane or many of these schools.
And I think Coach really hits a good point here is that these kids have come to Tulane to pick up a great education. Secondly, to play basketball and play against good competition. And this school and this university is providing both. And this is where these kids need to be right now.
Oh, absolutely, and that's where, you know, our mindset needs to be on the task at hand, which, you know, right now we can achieve all of our goals on and off the court, you know, right where we're at here. But again, you know, always looking to improve. That, as our team does each day in practice, our university is and our athletic department is.
9 and 10-years, you got any players for Ed or what? Torrance?
Oh, I have a little point guard. Any future commitments? Look, I tell you, he's a little bitty guy, but he's the toughest thing in Kenner.
Well, we like toughness and we like local guys.
Go to Kenner and ask about Peanut. That's all you have to say. Just say, I'm looking for Peanut, little bitty Peanut. That's the guy right there. That's the guy you're looking for.
So Tulane and UTEP coming up here on Wednesday night. Come on out to Devlin Fieldhouse and see Jim Floyd's team against Green Wave. Ed, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you. Continue the great work.
Yes, thank you.
Brian, it's always a pleasure. Torrance, thank you.
Yes.
For Adam,
Appreciate it.
for Andrew, for Lenny, and the entire bunch at Sports NOLA TV. Thanks for joining us. Be a good sport, and God bless you one and all. So long.